New fans with music NFTs. I have a couple great gentlemen with me here. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I'll introduce myself, and then we're going to talk about how to reach new fans with music NFTs. So I'm Jay Thorn. I'm an author, musician, and podcaster. I host a music NFT show. I'm also a contributor at the Invest in Music organization, and I'm at Twitter at jthorn_. We'll go to my left, Matt.
Yeah, I'm Matt Bond, a musician, producer, and CEO and founder of PopX, which is a marketplace, NFT marketplace.
And I'm Mattias, a music guy, once upon a time musician, then commercial director of Universal Music in the Scandinavian territory, and then finally ended up running a company called Co-Write that helps and lets fans invest in music and artists they love using Web3 technology.
Excellent. So we're going to dive into what it takes to get new fans, how to get new fans, what are the behaviors around collecting, how are they different from Web 2 versus Web 3. So Mattias, let's start with you. How did you come to Web 3 and become interested in Web 3 music? Let's start with us and then we'll see where that goes from there.
Yeah, sure. Well, was like a combination of two experiences, I would say. I was part of the music industry's last revolution at the time when Spotify was launching, that everything turned from CDs into streaming. And what was missing in that point, I think basically the whole industry missed the relation between fans and artists when they went into that space. Especially the services like Spotify and the others, they really didn't care about that relation. They just wanted to create a great listening experience, which was good, but they sort of missed out. Then I spent some years at the big media house called MTG in the Northern Europe, investing a lot into esports and gaming, and realized that in the same time when the music industry sort of missed out of the opportunity of working closer to the fans, the gaming industry did quite the opposite, because they started services like Twitch and people like streaming games online, and the people around them, they just were really good in creating new models around that. So that is why I sort of, when this new technology came up, realized this may be the opportunity for the music industry, and particularly the artists and the creators, to get back to the space and actually get back to the fan relations.
Excellent. Matt, let's take it to you. You got a long history in the music industry.
Yeah, my experience was a little different, because at the time I was an artist, and I remember going into my label and excuse me, and they kind of went, "Oh, great news! Your album's been downloaded a million times on a site called Napster." And I'm like, "Cool. And how do we get the money for that?" And he said, "I'm sure it'll come." But it didn't, obviously, So, fast forward, kind of, Cairon touring for another 10 years. I've signed over 100 record deals, writing songs for other people, and a lot of people come into me trying to get some of my acts and stuff to actually do NFTs, but there was no platform for me at the time that was easy to use. No one knew what a wallet was or kind of how to set this up. So that's where that's why we set up PopX, just 6 clicks. Anyone can go on, custodial wallets, multi-chain. It's super simple, and you just add your utility and take it from there, really. So that's where we're going.
Excellent. And I, like these guys, have a different path as well. I'm a full-time writer and publisher, and have been publishing on Amazon since 2009, and kind of came to the music industry or the music business a little late. And I like to call it the mentorship model, and I think it's something that kind of goes back a long ways, and it's not just the music industry. So a little bit later I'll get into my buddy Acutech, who I found in the Loners Telegram group, and how we kind of struck up a friendship and ended up with a collaboration, and I'm learning a ton from him. And I think that's a great way to reach new fans, is you make connections, you make friends, and you bring something of value. It's not a one-sided relationship, but like I said, I'll get more into that in a bit. So we went back to where you guys started. Let's move it forward to now. Why don't you give us sort of a state of music NFTs from your perspective?
Yeah, I heard a lot of nice stuff during the day. So I got a reflection, which I think the reason for now, why now is so important for musicians and creators, it could be producers, could be artists, or anyone that's involved in creating music, is that today, right now, the competition is worse than ever. It's beautiful that everyone that wants can create a song on their laptop and distribute it for free, basically, on the whole planet, and then compete with 100,000 other tracks every single day. That is the reality. So regardless how good you are, it's pretty tough to cut through the noise. And the normal industry, the regular industry, which I used to represent, they don't they don't know how to do it anymore either. So if you talk to any record label director right now, everybody's struggling. They don't know how to break new music. So what I heard, like looking at the Web3 space right now, even though it's not the early stage, but still very, very early. So it's far from 100,000 music NFTs released every single day. So if you're creative enough right now, I think there's several opportunities just to sort of creating your own business, taking the moment right in time now, because this is the time to get started. If you wait 5 years, it will be crowded here as well. But right now it's a super opportunity, and that is really not depending on exactly what kind of NFTs you're doing. It's about doing something that stands out and connects to the people that love your music. In our case, what I'm doing right now is co-write, where we create NFTs where you can basically back or invest in a certain song or a collection of songs, and then by doing so get a piece of the revenues when the songs are streaming on services like Spotify. And with that, we then create like fan experiences around it. So we try with missions to get these people to sort of engage and drive the value of the music further. But that's just one thing. I think there's several of different angles of this, but I think the timing is the point.
Yeah, definitely. Something we're doing is we work with Abbey Road and Dolby Atmos. We got 10 of the biggest Latino music producers in the world. They had like 100 billion streams between them. We sold 30% of the royalties before anyone even got in the studio. So what that meant is, the artist, the studio, everyone's getting paid before it starts. And as you say, it's like, it's great we're raising revenue. The flip side of it as well, which is really good, is you've then got marketeers who are invested in your track. So it doesn't matter what level you're on. If you sell 50% of your song, that could be 50 people that's pushing your track. Even 50 individuals at any level with any social reach are going to push your track a lot harder than the label can probably do it with, like, say, 50 grand budget. And it's being just out in front of people like that. I think that's and like you're saying, that's the time to get in is now, because there isn't that many people doing it at the moment.
Could I just sort of comment a bit on that? Because I think that's when we started Co-Write, I thought a bit naive that if you got like 100 people investing, let's say $10 or $100 in a certain track, they will be super active. They will spread it, they will share it, they will scream out it loud when they get the chance. But I would say the reality, when we have done like 400 campaigns now, bigger ones with like DJs like Alan Walker, who managed to got like 3,000 backers within like an hour. But really, people are not that sort of active. So that's our challenge, and that's why we're trying to sort of now with gamification and other tools really trying to make this activation even more fun than it is. So I think to your point, like the timing is now, but then you need to start. Somebody told earlier today that it's about starting a business. If you're selling an NFT product like you guys did, this is not like a one-timer. You need to take care of that for like probably 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, because it's a community that you're building, but that is also the opportunity.
Yeah, I think something to think on that is, like, obviously it's early stage now, but as that develops, you're going to get syndicates of people who will end up being the new record labels. So there'll be groups of 50 to 100 people who invest in, and they've got the pull, they've got the influence behind them, and that's where record labels are going to be. It's going to be community owned to kind of drive sales.
Well, that's a great segue, because I have a theory I want to put in front of you guys and see what you think of it. Can I get a quick show of hands of how many folks in here would consider themselves independent producers, musicians, or artists? Okay, about 20, 25% maybe. So I have this theory, and again, this comes from my experience in the publishing industry. When I first started in 2009, myself and my colleagues all thought that all the readers, they wanted contact with the author. They wanted to spend time with them. They wanted access to the author. You probably know where I'm going with this, right? We have this word in Web3 called utility, and it gets used a lot. And so we realized quickly that there are a large percentage of readers, and I would argue music fans, who just want to enjoy the art. They don't necessarily want to be in a Discord server with an artist, or they don't want to be in a Facebook group. They just want to appreciate the art and be a collector. And I feel like sometimes in Web3 we neglect those types of collectors. So that's my theory. What do you guys think? You don't have to agree with me.
I 100% agree with you. There will always be these super fans that are prepared to do basically anything for you, or also want to meet you as much as possible. But then you have the people in music. I think it's 99% of the population that would tell you that they love music. Only 1% says, no, I don't like music, but that's very rare. So I would say, but probably it's an 80-20 kind of rule. So mostly likely 80% of the people are just there for listening, and they appreciate what you're doing. But they might want there's kind of a thrilling thought, I think. If you were this guy to sort of notice this red-haired dude, Ed Sheeran, on the street corner in London, like 2012, when he was singing like a street performer, and you were about, if you could have invested like $10 into his music, if you like it, that's a kind of interesting thought, if that would happen. Same goes if you had this beautiful song that you were dancing with your beautiful wife at your wedding or something. If that came up because the producer were selling off like 3% of his royalties, so you can actually own a piece of your wedding song. These are the emotions I think could be attached to it, and then they doesn't necessarily have to be too much activity going on, but you just want to have a piece of those things. I think these are the beauty with music.
Yeah, I think when we initially started, we went down the marketing route, like heavy marketing, the Discord, get people involved, and it doesn't really work. You can like shout at people as much as you want. So like we've had success with we did a drop with a band called Funeral for a Friend. They sold these bobbleheads off images of themselves. No one knew what they were going to do, and then when the band went out on tour with My Chemical Romance, they took Polaroids and actually sent it to the people who purchased the NFTs, and then they're posting them online, and the other fans are like, oh, how did you get that? And it's like, oh, it's the NFT thing. Like the other thing we looked at doing is like actually drive a van to one of the fans' house, open the back, the drummer from the band's in there, and then just give them the drum kit. And like, if you want to promote something, like do something like that. And even though they say, yeah, we don't want to be part of the band, they don't want to do it, but they'll do it out of interest then, because they'll think they don't know what's going to happen. And I think that kind of FOMO angle is probably a lot better from an artist point of view to push out than, join my Discord and I'll tell you how great I am,
Yeah, fantastic. Want to make sure we give folks some actionable things that they can do, today, tomorrow. So we'll do that. We'll save some time for some questions. I mentioned earlier that I'm a big believer in the mentorship model, and that works in many industries and in many artistic endeavors. And just learning from another producer, and he releases on Sound XYZ, and now he's kind of bringing me on, and I'm learning from him, and he gets my reach as an author with a sort of a built-in fan base. So it's a very great mutual relationship. What would your advice be to musicians or artists or producers now to something they can actionably do like today that can start reaching new fans?
Well, I think just doing something is a good start within the space. I think what is beautiful with the whole Web3 is still, it's, as we said, is not too much competition so far, and that goes also for the creative side. So I think if you're a good music producer, you can probably, with a DM on Instagram, reach out to the biggest and most famous NFT artists that has been like doing super successful stuff, and you can get a collab going, which will be much tougher if you try to reach out to Ariana Grande and try to ask her if you could do her next single. That would probably not work if you don't know her already. So I think that it's a space of collaboration right now, so I think that opens up. If you're a music producer, you could probably collaborate with hundreds of great NFT visual artists out there to create amazing art / music.
Yeah,
so that's
just
one angle.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. I think we all know now how seamless and transparent and trustless that collaboration, that relationship is financially. Right, especially if you're using a platform and a smart contract, or you're doing splits using the blockchain. There's nothing. There's no administrative overhead. There's no lawyers. There's no contracts necessarily involved once you set that. So I think that's an advantage we have now that we didn't have even 5 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was just thinking, as you say now, like Spotify kind of like really accelerated artists. When they started collaborating, like everyone's after collabs, and like Ed Sheeran was probably the first to kind of see it when he just collabed with everyone. If you want to get your numbers up, you can probably go from 0 to 500,000 just by getting like 2 or 3 of the right collabs. Like whenever we've kickstarted artists, that's kind of what we do immediately. The interesting thing with a blockchain is all super transparent, so you haven't got to deal with those labels, you haven't got to deal with like that side of it either.
Yeah, excellent.
Go ahead. And also, I think on the pure music side, if you don't want to bother about everything else, I think there's several of good services out there, including our one, but there's competition as well. But there are platforms now where you can, instead of just releasing a song like randomly on a service like Amuse or United Masters or whoever distributor you want to choose. You can pick a service like Co-Write or any other service, and you can instead create like an NFT fundraising. So you can actually get some advance, and you have, instead of going to a record label signing up a record deal, you go to a service like this and you get an advance, and then you have a community that will support your release, which is a totally different sort of, you're in another position than if you're just releasing on your own.
Yeah, I think like, yeah, just to add to it, it's not that confusing. Like, I think people overcomplicate the NFT thing, and like what we say is it's a digital expansion to your merch stand, and that's it. So whatever you're selling your merch, whatever you're doing, you know what your fans want. Just test the water and just try something small. Like I say, there's plenty of sites out there doing it. Come to us, it's free, and like you can just try stuff out, and it's like. It's not about being the first of the game either. Look at what other artists are doing and just kind of dabble it until that reaches your demographic and your fans take on it, and then you might find a gap. It's the same as when you're releasing music. You kind of tread the path of where you want to go, but you want to do something a little bit different, and this is just another tool to kind of implement that.
Yeah, it works up and down too. So my buddy Acutech does techno, and I do dark techno, and so he kind of took me under his wing, and we're splitting that contract. And then he reached out to his mentor Connor Dalton, who does a lot of techno mastering, and he's baking his points into the contract as well. So again, like those collaboration opportunities, those financial opportunities, they exist hierarchically, both up and down that whole chain. There was a panel in here before, and folks were talking about all the overhead it's in the traditional studio setup, and parsing out those rights and all that accounting and all of that is not necessary anymore.
So one more thing, I think the reason for actually the music industry is a bit sort of lagging behind on this fan relation thing compared to newer industries like the gaming one, is that it's a big and it's a historic tradition on how to release music. It's been so in the same way basically for the last 50, 60, 70 years. First you get signed by label, then you get a budget, then you record some amazing music, and then you release that music, and then you start touring. And it's like the whole myth of becoming an artist is still there. And I find it a bit strange when I talk to artists in the age of 15 that they still think this is the case, because it wasn't the case like 15 years ago either, but because then streaming came. But still, so I think it's about thinking in a new kind of way. It's about finding the 100 first people that loves your music, which is probably friends and family and some people that comes to your release party, and then building that crowd to 1,000, and already at 1,000, if you manage to get these people to pay stuff, you will be able to live on your art. And then if you bring them to 10,000, then you start get famous, and then everything will work out smoothly for you. But I think you need to think about it in a totally opposite way. Nobody will sign you to heaven. That's the point.
Yeah, excellent. I'd love to take some questions. I'll be happy to repeat so the room can hear them. Anybody? Yes, sir. Okay, so I think the question is, what's going to happen when the record labels get into the ecosystem?
Go. Yeah,
well,
so
I can do the corporate answer first. Being at Universal Music, I would say this is the way of the industry. So in some of the cases, there will be companies like the guys that were talking just previously that will do amazing stuff. You guys will do amazing stuff. There will be several independent technology companies doing stuff in this space, helping artists. And if the labels are sort of onto it, they will acquire these companies eventually. Like Universal Music has always been acquiring the great independent labels. That's how they work. So I don't necessarily think the labels will go out of business. They will transform into the next generation of business because they sit on the catalogs. They do a lot of good stuff as well. But the traditional label model will not survive, I would say, the next 10 years. They need to change. And they will change as they did before. So I don't think this is the end of the label era, but I think what I'm saying is that for new artists, which was the case like 10 years ago as well, it's very, very hard to build a career based on the notion that you get signed by a big label and then they help you to fame. I think that's over. You need to do it on your own. for any label to be interested in working with you anyways. So, and if you get yourself to a certain level where the labels start calling, maybe you don't have to sign with them anyway because you already built your business. That is the difference. So if you manage to create something on your own with Web3, then you have a serious choice to make at some point when you get to these numbers.
So I'll just add to that. Like we're working with quite a few labels, and what we're doing is like looking at like existing infrastructure and how to streamline it. So we're the only company in the UK that's attached to the UK charts. So instead of when you're doing your label push and you're trying to chart, you have to print vinyl. So you have to pay to print the vinyl. You have to send the vinyl out and do it. So we've actually linked directly with the charts, so we can do digital pressings, which means that every NFT they buy from us counts to 150 streams or like one actual physical sale. Obviously, it's better for the environment. It saves labels money, and it just streamlines the whole system. Instead of a label being able to do a chart release with say one or two other like headbands, now they might as well just roll out digital collectibles with all of them because they chart and it saves them. And I think it's going to be using the blockchain technology to streamline existing infrastructure more than they're going out of business and they don't know what's going on, because they're not going to make the same mistakes they made 10 years ago when they just said streaming is not going to take off. So they are all on it, like I said.
I think one more thing. I think this is also, as it is an opportunity for the independent artist, it's also an opportunity for the independent labels. So the labels that really understand this craft now and help their artists that they have signed to do their careers and pursue their careers with the help of new technology like NFTs, they will survive and they will be strong, because maybe that is the only real value the label could bring to the table in 5 years, actually helping the artist build their fan bases for real, not just waiting for some TikTok to happen and then sign the TikTok hit, which is the case right now.
Can you take your message today in this room about audience growth and distill it down to like a 3-step takeaway?
Okay, question is audience growth in a 3-step takeaway. Who wants to go first?
My final tip for today would be, that's the perfect question for the ChatGPT. He will be better than me to answer this. And if you're not satisfied with the first 3 answers, you can just ask for 3 more, and then it will be. And actually, it's not kidding. I asked the chat friend of mine just before this call, so I think you will get a lot of. But I think the pure thing is like create stuff that fans actually love. If you don't create music that nobody likes, it doesn't make sense anyway. And then grind like crazy, working with the fans, talking to them, communicate with whatever kind of technology. But then finally use the NFT and try it out. Start to throw these like, what do you call, like a little network of yours, and build your first 100 people around you that actually but it's not a like one-day thing. This is a long-term commitment if you want to become an artist over a serious time. But I think that's my 3: good music, good communication, try new stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
Matt, you got a quick 3?
Quick 3. Yeah, just know your fans. Like it's so important to know your fans. Like whether you're selling music into them or anything else, NFTs aren't the answer that's gonna make you like famous or make your music sell. Like your music's your music. This is just a bit on the side, and that's it for me. I think it's like it's not about there's this answer that you're going to get involved in Web3 and it's all going to be fine. Like fundamentally, like know your fans, release good music, and just do what you can do, really.
Yeah, and I think I'll steal one from Rick Rubin's new book, which is the audience comes last. So make stuff that you really care about, because if you don't really care about it, no one else is going to care about it. So I think that's kind of where you got to start. Thanks. You guys, let's let them know where we can find us. So if you want to see the mentorship model in action, I pinned a tweet on my Twitter profile. You can check it out there. Matt?
Popx.net.
Cowrite.com.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.